I wish I could tell you I screamed, that I lunged at them, shattered vases, tore clothes, made them bleed the way they had just ripped my heart open. But I didn't. I just stood there, the grocery bag in my hand slipping to the floor, apples rolling across the marble tiles. The room smelled like expensive perfume and sweat. The sheets on the bed, my mother's bed, were twisted and evidence of the scene that had just taken place. Chijioke's back was turned to me, his hands fumbling with the buttons of his shirt like a criminal caught in the act. When he finally turned around, his face drained of color. I had never seen him look so terrified. Adanna, I didn't want to hear it. And then my mother, Mama Ngozi, laughed. Not a nervous laugh, not even an apologetic one. It was a slow, victorious chuckle, like she had just won a game she had been playing for a long, long time. She stretched lazily, the silk wrapper barely covering her body. Then she looked at me with mocking sympathy, as if I were a naive child who had just learned the world was cruel. I warned you, Adanna, she said, tilting her head. Men will always betray you, even your own. I wanted to scream. I wanted to shake my head and deny what I was seeing. But the truth was there, staring me in the face. And the worst part, I knew deep down that this wasn't just a betrayal. This was something my mother had planned all along. If someone had told me that my own mother would one day steal my husband, I would have laughed in their face. My mother, Mama Ngozi, had always been my protector. She was the one who wiped my tears when I fell. She was the one who warned me about love, about trusting too deeply. But she was also the one who opened her arms to my husband, not as a mother, but as a woman. And when I found out, she didn't even pretend to be ashamed. 3 years earlier, I met Chijioke at 21. And from the moment I brought him home, I should have known something was wrong. My mother wasn't like other mothers. She didn't gush about my boyfriend. She didn't ask him questions about his job or his future plans. Instead, she just stared at him, studied him. Then, without warning, she turned to me and said, "He will hurt you, Adanna, just like your father hurt me." I thought she was being dramatic, but now I wonder, was that a warning or was it a challenge? At first, everything seemed normal. Chijioke loved me fiercely, and even though my mother was cold to him, he never stopped trying to win her over. He brought her gifts, gold earrings, her favorite wine, and so many other things. He offered to drive her to the market when I was too busy. And then, one day, she started dressing differently. I noticed it when we visited her house for Sunday lunch. She wore a fitted gown that hugged her curves, her makeup applied with more care than usual. She even wore perfume, something she hadn't done in years. I laughed and teased her. "Mommy, you look good today. Who are you trying to impress?" She smirked. "Maybe I just don't want to look like an old woman." Chijioke smiled. "You don't look old at all, Mama. You're still very beautiful. And for the first time, I saw something strange in my mother's eyes. It wasn't the look of a mother. It was the look of a woman being admired. It started softly. My mother and Chijioke would talk more when I wasn't around. Whenever I entered the room, the conversation would die too quickly, like they had been talking about something I wasn't supposed to hear. Then, one evening, she asked me a question that sent a chill through my bones. Has he started working late yet? I frowned. What? She took a sip of her wine, her eyes sharp. Men start working late when they are hiding something. I rolled my eyes. Mommy, not everything is a sign of cheating. She just smiled. Maybe not, but he should check his pockets. That night, I did something I had never done before. When Chijioke fell asleep, I searched his pockets, and in his wallet, I found a restaurant receipt for 2 people. On the same night, he told me he had been working late. I confronted him the next day, but he laughed and said, Adanna, it was just a business dinner. You're overthinking. I wanted to believe him, but something felt off. Then, one night, I woke up to find his phone vibrating. A message from my mother. Mama Ngozi, I told you she would start suspecting. Be careful. I stared at the screen, my heart pounding. What was she warning him about? And why did I suddenly feel like I was the outsider in my own marriage? After that night, a dark cloud settled over my marriage. I tried to shake off the uneasy feeling, telling myself that I was just overreacting, that my mother's message to Chijioke was innocent, that there was no way my mother, the woman who raised me, could ever betray me like that. But the whispers had started, and they wouldn't stop. Chijioke changed. He was still the same loving husband on the surface, but something about him felt off. He started coming home later than usual, his explanations vague. Sometimes I would wake up in the middle of the night and his side of the bed would be empty. When I asked him about it, he would just sigh and say, Adanna, work has been stressful. I wanted to believe him. I needed to believe him. But my instincts were screaming at me. One night, I woke up again and found him missing. But this time, I saw his phone on the nightstand. It was unlocked. I don't know what possessed me to pick it up, but I did. And the first message I saw sent chills down my spine. I miss you. Come over. It read, from Mama Ngozi. My fingers trembled as I scrolled through the messages. My mother and my husband had been talking every night. At first, it was just casual chats about me, about how I had been acting paranoid lately. But then, the messages turned into something else. Flirting, hints of secret meetings, conversations that should never happen between a mother and her daughter's husband. And then I saw it. A message from Chijioke, just sent hours before. She's asleep. I'll be there soon. I dropped the phone as if it burned me. Confrontation or a game. The next morning, I went straight to my mother's house. My hands were shaking. My heart was raging inside my chest. But when I stormed in, she was already sitting at the dining table sipping tea, as if she had been expecting me. She didn't even look surprised when I slammed my hands on the table and yelled, "What the hell is going on between you and my husband?" She smiled. Then, with terrifying calmness, she said, "Why are you asking questions you already know the answers to?" She wasn't denying it. I wanted to scream, to shake her, to demand an explanation. But she just sipped her tea and said, "You're too soft, Adanna, too trusting. It was bound to happen." It was bound to happen? My stomach churned, bile rising in my throat. This wasn't just betrayal, this was planned. She had been waiting for this, wanting this. I took a shaky step back. You did this on purpose?" She let out a small laugh, her eyes dark with something unreadable. "You think I planned for this?" "No. Adanna, I only showed you the truth." I clenched my fists. "What truth?" She leaned forward, her expression turning cold. "That men will always betray you, even the one you thought would never hurt you." My head spun. She wasn't just taking my husband, she was proving a point, a sick, twisted point. And the worst part, she believed she was doing me a favor. I walked out of my mother's house that morning, but I didn't leave with peace. I left with a mission. If she wanted to teach me a lesson, then I needed to learn everything. So I played along. I smiled at Chijioke when he came home. I pretended not to notice the lingering scent of my mother's perfume on his clothes. I didn't ask questions when he disappeared for hours because I needed proof. And when the truth finally revealed itself, it shattered me beyond repair. A week passed, then 2. By now, my mother has stopped pretending altogether. Whenever I visited her, she would say things like, "Are you sure Chijioke loves you? A man in love should spend more time at home." Or, "You've gained weight. Be careful, men don't like lazy wives." She was slowly pushing me out of my own marriage, and I was letting her, because I needed to see the full picture before I made my next move. Then, one night, I decided to follow Chijioke. I told him I was going to visit a friend, then doubled back and waited near my mother's house. At exactly 10:47 p.m., I saw his car pull up in front of her gate. He didn't knock, he used a key. My breath caught in my throat. He had a key to her house. And when he stepped inside, my mother was waiting for him, wearing nothing but a silk robe. I felt my knees weaken. I had prepared myself for the worst, but nothing could have prepared me for the way he held her, like a man who was exactly where he wanted to be, like a man in love. I stood there in the darkness, watching as they disappeared into the house together. And that's when I knew this wasn't just an affair. This was a relationship. I could have stormed in right then and there. I could have exposed them, screamed, broken things, demanded answers. But something inside me snapped. I had spent weeks trying to understand why my mother would do this to me. And then, at that moment, it became clear. She wanted me to break. She wanted me to be just like her, bitter, broken, untrusting. She wanted me to believe that love was a lie, that all men would betray me, that I was foolish, forever believing otherwise. And I refused. So I did something no one expected. I walked away. I walked away that night, but I didn't walk away defeated. I walked away with a plan. See, my mother thought she had won. She thought she had broken me, just like my father had broken her. But what she didn't know was that she had set herself up for her own downfall. A silent war begins. The next morning, I packed my bags and left our home without a word. I didn't cry, I didn't shout, I just disappeared. And that's when things started to unravel. Chijioke called me non-stop for days, but I never answered. He sent messages begging for a conversation, but I left him unread. I knew it was only a matter of time before the guilt started eating at him, before he started to realize what he had done. And my mother, she acted as if nothing had happened, until rumors started spreading. I didn't have to do much. People talked. Chijioke and I were well known in our community. Our wedding had been the talk of the town, and our marriage was something people admired. So when people noticed that I was suddenly gone, and that my mother and my husband were spending more time together, whispers began to spread like wildfire. It started with small comments at the market, curious glances at family gatherings. Then, one day, I received a call from my aunt, my mother's elder sister. "Adanna," she said, her voice tight with anger, "tell me the truth. Is it true that your mother is with your husband?" I hesitated, pretending to be ashamed. "Auntie, I don't know how to talk about it." That was all it took. Because a mother sleeping with her own daughter's husband, that was a disgrace that no one would overlook. In our culture, respect is everything, and my mother, a woman who had built her reputation on being strong and independent, was now the center of a scandal. People stopped visiting her. Women whispered about her behind her back. Men laughed at Chijioke, calling him the son-in-law who became a husband. Then, something unexpected happened. Chijioke came looking for me. I was staying at a friend's house when I heard a knock on the door. When I opened it, there he was, the man who had betrayed me. But he didn't look like the confident, charming husband I had married. He looked broken. "Adanna," he said, his voice shaking, "I made a mistake." I raised an eyebrow. "Oh, which one?" His eyes filled with regret. "Your mother. She's not who I thought she was." I almost laughed. "Of course, she wasn't. She's controlling, manipulative. She only wanted me to hurt you, and now she's pushing me away too." I tilted my head, pretending to be confused. "But you chose her, didn't you?" Chijioke dropped to his knees. "I was stupid. Please, Adanna, let's fix this." He had lost me. He had lost his dignity. And now he was losing the very woman he betrayed me for. But I just smiled. I will make him suffer more. I need to revenge, and trust me, it's going to be legendary, I said to myself. At that point, I was full of rage, and in a split second, a sinister plan intertwined in my brain, a move that will ensure neither of them ever recovered from this. I would make an anonymous post on a popular gossip blog, spilling every detail. how my mother seduced my husband, how he betrayed our vows, and how they both thought they had won. People will share it on Facebook, Instagram, even WhatsApp family groups. Then, my mother will be the most hated woman in town. She will call me, screaming, begging me to take it down. I wouldn't answer. Next, I will go after Chijioke. I knew his workplace valued integrity, so I will send anonymous emails to his boss, detailing his affair with my mother. I will even attach screenshots of their messages. The company had a strict no scandal policy. Chijioke will lose his job. He will call me in a panic. I will smile and say, "Now you know how it feels." Then I will hang up. My heartbeat raced, but suddenly I felt a chill run through me and I let down my guards, because nothing is more powerful than moving on and proving that their betrayal didn't destroy me. I decided to let God fight for me and let karma take its course. When Chijioke begged me for another chance, I simply looked at him and said no. No screaming, no insults, just a firm, final rejection. I watched as the weight of his mistake crashed over him. He expected me to fight for him. He expected me to be worth my pain. But I refused to give him that satisfaction. I packed my bags and left for a fresh start. I moved to a new city, got a better job, and rebuilt my life. Meanwhile, my mother's world collapsed. The community never forgave her. Women whispered about her in the market, and the men she once tried to impress mocked her for stealing her own daughter's husband. As for Chijioke, he thought my mother would love him forever, but without the thrill of sneaking around, she grew bored of him. One day, I heard from a friend that my mother had kicked him out. He lost everything. He had left town in shame, running away from the mess he had created. And me, I thrived. As for my mother, she called me one last time, her voice breaking. "Adanna, you have ruined me." I smiled to myself. "No, Mama, you ruined yourself." I blocked her number and I was free. Moral of the story: betrayal cuts deep, especially when it comes from those closest to us. But the best revenge, it's not just about destruction. It's about rebuilding yourself so beautifully that they regret ever losing you. If you were in Adanna's shoes, what would you have done? Please share your thoughts in the comments. As always, this is African Tales by Mama Yad. Please do not forget to like, subscribe, and share. Thank you for watching. See you next time. Goodbye.